So first, the discover phase. This is more like an assessment phase. And why would you do this? This is primarily to build a business case and get an approval to actually start the S4 conversion. This phase helps you evaluate the complexity of the conversion and also the feasibility. So let's just quickly move on to the discovery and the assessment phases. So how is this accomplished? Primarily, you'll need to have workshops. As service providers, we have workshops with the customer, both functional, technical, and infra workshops. And then we strategize on a number of things. How is the landscape going to be during the project and after the project? Where are you going to deploy your S4 landscape? How are you going to manage the dual development? How is HA and DR addressed? What is the cutover strategy? How do you go about doing the integration with your third-party interfaces? How is the testing done? What are the testing? What are the test cases? What are the test scenarios? And then archiving. Is there a need for archiving now? Is there a possibility to clean up your database ahead of the S4 conversion? Or if that is not required, then how do you plan to keep your S4 system not grow too much after you've converted to S4? And then the training strategy, which is both training for the IT users as well as for the end users. So when we do these kinds of workshop, at the end of a discover phase, these are the possible deliverables that you should expect. One is you should know if your system is how it's going to be compatible when you run on an S4. What is the business process impact? What are the fit gap analysis document, which tells you what is your current process here in ACC as against what is in S4? And then what are the business functions that you're currently using? And what are the add-ons? Are they still compatible when you go to S4? And how are you going to go about and review the errors and inconsistencies in a pre-check? So if you already had a list of these errors and inconsistencies, then you're already crossed the bridge partway. So then you know how you're going to handle them when you actually run the project. And then the review of the simplification list. I will go through a little further detail on the simplification list, as well as the add-ons and the business functions, because those are the most critical things when you do the assessment phase. And then some housekeeping advisory. How are you going to clean up your code? How are you going to clean up the tables like logs, like IDOC logs that you don't need anymore? So it's unspool logs, the batch logs, because even though all of this has jobs that do the cleanup, you really want to relook all this, because when you enter into a conversion, the size of the database really matters. One, for the size of the hardware that you're going to procure, and two, how you go about to simplify your conversion process, and number three, how are you going to manage this going forward? And then some considerations on the landscape and infrastructure, which we already touched upon. And then the actual project considerations. What is your project plan? How are you going to do the testing, the cutover, and so on? So if you had all this at the end of the assessment phase, then you are at a very good shape to be able to take it to your board or your management to be able to get an approval to start the project. And by this time, the IT team and the SMEs already have a fair idea on what they are getting into. So there are some activities that we recommend that which you would do in a later phase has been pulled into the discover phase. The reason being, we have understood and we've realized that if we had addressed these early on, then it would have really helped us do the project better. So what are the tools that are available to be able to do these? The maintenance planner is one. The SAP Readiness Check is one. The SAP Transformation Navigator is another. SAP Fiori Apps Recommendation. In addition to this, there are a lot of tools that have been developed by partners. In fact, we have one such tool that we have developed at Car Technologies that helps you do this assessment in a very short period of time and be able to deliver to you an assessment report at the end of this exercise. The tool is K-Turn, and I will talk about K-Turn a couple of slides down the line. So these partner tools, it really helps because especially when the partner has done the conversion himself, he knows how he can accelerate the whole process. So, and running these pre-checks in this phase helps us in addressing the inconsistencies well ahead of time. So let's first discuss about the maintenance planner. This is nothing new to those ECC customers. It's now hosted on SAP portal. It simplifies the landscape maintenance process. So whenever you'll have to do an install or an upgrade, you always reach out to the maintenance planner. And now with the maintenance planner available on the SAP portal, you have options where you say, okay, this is a conversion. I'm going from ECC, EHP, XX to wherever, to the S4 HANA 1709 system. And then you give your system details. It takes in all that information and it comes back to you to tell you what is feasible, what is not. And it also gives you the prerequisite with respect to the OSDB versions, if you had any add-ons that you'll have to look at and so on. So running the maintenance planner way ahead really helps you in this process. The second one is the readiness check. So readiness check, earlier you had to run the readiness check with SAP Solution Manager, but now SAP gives you an option where you could run the readiness check without using the Solution Manager as well. So what are the areas that the readiness check provides? First is it gives you the sizing. The sizing becomes very critical because it is at this assessment phase that you're already looking at how big should my target system be. And we've read and heard over and over again that the size of your target system is going to be considerably less. But in reality, it is not 1/10, possibly 2/3, or somewhere between 2/3 and a full is the kind of reduction that you see in the database. And during this conversion process itself, a lot of memory and CPU gets used. So you would have heard about the sizing report that we generally run. The readiness check really runs the sizing reports and gives you indication on how big your appliance should be during the conversion, post-conversion, and so on. And then what about the add-ons? Many customers would have add-ons. These could be standard add-ons of ECC, and SAP would have made sure that it is compatible with S4. But then there could be add-ons in your system which have been developed by SAP Custom Development. And for those, it is suggested that you reach out to SAP CD ahead of time to ensure that these are compatible with S4. And the third, the most critical one, is the partner add-ons. So what are these partner add-ons? You would have bought partner add-ons that have been certified by SAP that could be installed into SAP and you've been using them. But now when you go to S4, you'll have to ensure that the same add-on works on S4. So if you have a third-party add-on, our suggestion is soon after the assessment phase, get in touch with the third-party vendor, ensure that he understands that there are changes that could be required in the software. So if he is not yet released S4 compatible add-on, then possibly he could get started on the development sooner than later. And the the vendor will have to create an add-on compatible with every release of S4. So that is very critical. So possibly with 1709 and the next release coming up, you'll have to ensure that the vendor knows which version of S4 that you're getting into. And then about the active business functions. There are these active business functions that will have to be supported in S4. So they could be in one of these states. They could be always on in S4, customer switchable, or they could be always off. You would have to be worried if your business function is always off, because in that case, the S4 on-premise does not support that. So possibly at that point, you would not be able to do a conversion to S4. And the third one is, what are the solution adjustments required? So why would that be required? Because now you have a new data structure on S4 as against ECC. So your solution will have to work on the S4 database as well. So these are the various areas that the readiness report reports on. So once you have this information, you are able to go ahead and step into the conversion process. And at the end of a discover phase, you also have the project plan, and you have the commercial, you have the timeline, you have the the business resources that need to be part of the project. You have the testing scenarios, you have the testing resources, you have the exit criteria, you have the strategies. So pretty much at the end of the discover or the assessment phase, you're good to go to embark on this project. This, given the importance of this, we recommend that you take a copy of your production into a sandbox system and run the pre-checks, which is typically not done. But the reason we recommend that you do this is because you can run all the pre-checks that lead into a conversion. When you do this, what really happens is you already have the list of all inconsistencies, and then you know how much of involvement of the business that you need. So this kind of gives you an overview of the tools that we use. And K-Turn is a tool that we have that can work you through the assessment phase and give you a final report on how a S4 conversion project is going to go.